Okay, here we have the grammar notes on pages 35 and 36 about future tense. Okay, we use will or going to say what you will think will happen in the future. Examples: I think I'll enjoy the trip, or I think I'm going to enjoy the trip. And your textbook makes a distinction between the will future and the going to future. And feel free to study that note on page 35. But the difference between will and going to is not a very important thing to worry about. When you're studying a new language, you really have to kind of pick your battles when it comes to grammar. Some grammar is very, very important to learn because if you do it wrong, people don't know what you're talking about. And other grammar points don't matter very much. People will understand you fine, even if you don't get it quite right. And the difference between will and going to is this very kind of fine point that I would not advise you to worry about very much. Okay, we use the future progressive, the will be going to doing something. Will be, or going to be, will be, oh, I don't know. We use it to describe an action that will be in progress at a certain time in the future, and this is what it looks like. We'll be visiting Florence on our Italy trip. We're going to be spending time in Rome too. And if we look back at the picture, we've already seen these pictures of the future tense with will or going to, future tense using the present tense, even though the meaning is the future. Here's a picture of what this future progressive looks like. We're talking a period of time in the future on our Italy trip, and we'll be visiting Florence during that time. I could also use during our time. I could also say we'll be visiting Florence during our Italy trip. You can also use simple future, we'll visit Florence, or we're going to visit Florence in that kind of sentence. And we've talked about this before. You can use the simple present to talk about a future action, state, or event that is part of a schedule or a timetable. For example, we leave on Saturday at 8 p.m. The plane arrives in Rome at 8:30 a.m. There I'm using the present to mean a future action because it's part of a schedule or a timetable. You can use the present progressive or present continuous to talk about a future action or event that has already been arranged. For example, we're traveling to Japan in August. We already have our tickets. In that sentence, you could say we're traveling to Japan, we're going to Japan, or we're going to travel to Japan. We will travel to Japan in that sentence. It's a little bit foreign, but everybody understands fine what you mean. All right, this is what we were talking about earlier in the teacher talk just before this one. In a complex sentence that takes place in the future, you use future tense in the independent clause and simple present tense in the dependent clause. Or remember, a dependent clause can also be called a subordinate clause or an adverb clause. Dependent clause, subordinate clause, adverb clause, all the same thing. For example, we'll rent a car when we get to Italy. Okay, here's your subordinator, here's your present tense, and here's the future tense in the main clause. So here are 2 stars for a sentence that's not correct. We'll rent a car when we will get to Italy. We do not say that. We'll leave for the airport as soon as the taxi gets here. As soon as is a subordinator, and so here's your present tense. And we don't use the future in both of the clauses. Okay, use the future perfect to show an action, state, or event that will happen before a certain time in the future. For example, by the end of our trip, we'll have seen a lot of wonderful things. Okay, the end of our trip is a time in the future. We'll have seen, these are things that happened before this time in the future, the end of our trip. Hold on a minute. Here is how it looks in a picture. Okay, the end of our trip is this time in the future, and before that time, we'll have seen a lot of wonderful things. Here's another example. By the end of this semester, we will have finished this book. I hope we will anyway. But the end of this semester is the future, and we will have finished is before that time in the future. And you can also use the future perfect in the progressive. For example, by the end of the summer, we'll have been traveling for several weeks. And let's stop and maybe look at a picture of that. Here is what that one looks like in a picture. Here's the end of the summer in the future. And by that time, we will have been traveling for several weeks before the end of the summer. And notice that we often use the future perfect with by and by the time. For example, by the time we finish our trip, we'll have visited 10 countries.